Cindy Daychuk with Queen Bee Creations. Today we've got a fun, cute, quick little project for you that really doesn't take much in terms of anything special to use. So I have an old board, and it's okay that it's rough and that it's uneven. That's even better. I have 3 empty jars. So these are not special ball jars, these are not expensive jars, these are just your basic little canning Bernardin mason jars, right? So they're just really basic, really simple. So what we're gonna do is we're going to make kind of a little hanging little flower or organizer, just using some basic items from the house. So to start, what I am doing is I have Farm Fresh from DIY Paint, and I have beadboard, which is one of the whites. And all I'm looking at doing is putting some paint on my board, and I'm really not looking for it to be perfect coverage, right? So I'm using an old chip brush because I've got rough edges, because I'm gonna be sanding this back a bit. I'm gonna be losing some of that paint. So I want it to look worn and kind of unfinished and like it's been hanging out there for a while. So I'm just kind of putting this on roughly. Let me get my edges over here. I like it when there's projects that you can do, they're going to be really cute, whether as a project for yourself, for your home, as maybe a little housewarming gift or something, you know, when you can get out and rejoin family again. And this one is just kind of one of those projects. I'm not going to paint the back because this project is designed to hang on a wall somewhere. So I'm not gonna agonize over that. Whoops, wrong way around. But I am gonna let that dry a bit. Now, what I do have is I have kind of a raised design on my jars. If you don't, skip this step. But because I have this raised design, I want it to kind of distress back a little. So I'm gonna take that same Farm Fresh and I'm going to paint 2 coats over top of that raised design. Just so that when I distress it back, that's going to show. Make sense? So the nice thing about DIY paint is that it will stick to just about anything. So you can paint it directly onto glass and it is going to adhere just fine. Okay, so I'm gonna let those dry and then put a second coat of my Farm Fresh over top of that, just so that when I distress it, it's gonna show a little bit. But I am gonna take a second little chip brush, dip it into my beadboard and kind of wipe off most of it. And I am just going to add some little white highlights on top of my board here. So just to add a little bit of interest, my jars are gonna be painted white. Just want to kind of unify this a little bit, add in a little bit of that weathering. And it's just nice and random. No magic to anything here, so nice and simple. Get a little bit of white on my ends. that's it until my jar's dry. I'll add that second coat of the Farm Fresh on front, and then we'll come back for the next step. Once you have your 2 coats on and they're dry, just give them a light sanding. So this is a 320 grit sandpaper that's already very worn. I'm just looking at smoothing the jar off a little bit. So this is kind of a, you could just skip this part. It's just a personal preference. I just like the feel of them better when they're smoothed out a bit. And then we are just going to do some wet distressing and highlight the label. So these ones had that raised lettering. So all I'm going to do is, using a wet wipe or a damp cloth, I'm just going to kind of rub back and remove the white paint that was over top of it. And DIY is activated with water, so it gets removed very easily. If you had plain jars, you can just leave them plain, or you could certainly take a stencil. So in the Jamie Ray Vintage line that I have on the site, queenbeecreationshome.com, they have some new jar labels out that are just amazingly cute. And there are also some mini grain sack stencils. So either of those packs would work, whichever one you like better. In the IOD line, there are label stamps, crockery stamps. Now, I will say this. They sold out a while ago, not just on my site, so they just all of a sudden were crazy popular. I had them sitting for a while and then nuts. So expect that they're out of stock everywhere, and we'll be restocking just as soon as IOD is able to get more of them put together. But those ones would be perfect, but they're gone. I do have in the shop some transfers, so some pot transfers. So it comes with, I can't remember, 12, 15, 16, something like that. Different little label transfers for pots. So they would work for this really well also. In which case, just seal your jar first and then apply your transfer over it. Just, they adhere better to that than just plain paint. There you go. As I have finished wet distressing, I will let them dry because I've kind of wet the paint. So before I would seal them, I want to let that paint dry fully. So what I will do while I'm waiting for that to happen, and before I seal it, and I have DIY wax in clear out to seal the jars with. All right, so those are my 3 jars done. Super cute. Those look really good. Showing that little Bernardin logo. Before I do that, what I do want to do is to sand my board a little bit. All right. So all that's left to do on our project right now is to seal all of our pieces up. And for that, I'm just gonna be using DIY clear wax. So I want to seal my board. And so I'm just gonna apply a coat of the wax on there because I'm wrapping up here in the shop and I want to leave all of my wax pieces overnight so that I can buff them out tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow, we will do our finishing touches and get everything attached. So you can see that clear wax really brings out the colors. It kind of reactivates the paint a little bit. And because of the sanding, we've got some of the wood grain showing, we've got some of the white showing. It looks nice and weathered. And then we're just going to wax up our jars, get them sealed, and then tomorrow we can get them buffed. Next steps in our process. These have dried overnight and we just want to buff them up. So taking a clean, lint-free rag, just rubbing them, you'll see the wax start to shine. Just makes them look better. Okay, so let me do one more, because we're going to start to assemble our piece. We've got work to do on the board, and then we've got some work to do on our jars. First thing on the board is I want to flip it over, and I want to put a little bit of hanging hardware on it. What I have are just some little alligator teeth clips that I'm going to screw into the back, just so that it can get hung on a wall. Now, the hooks I'm going to be adding onto the front were originally gold or silver. I don't even know anymore. I use hooks a lot in the shop. And so when I go to spray paint out some for a project, maybe I needed 2 or 3 for a particular project, I will then spray a couple of extra just so that I have them all ready for future projects. Just because black tends to be perhaps the most common color for me. So I'm just kind of measuring to see roughly where my middle will be, because I haven't done that yet. Now I'm at 23 and a half. So half of 23 is 11 and a half. So 11 and a half, and then I want a quarter. Oh my goodness, I was pretty much bang on. I get so used to just eyeballing things that it gets a little bit crazy. Okay, now my screws, because I didn't spray paint these up, my screws are kind of a goldy bronze. They're not black. And so what I will do is I will touch them up with paint afterward, just so that they don't stand out and kind of glare out at us. So all I'm going to do here is attach my hooks, and I'm just doing small little commonplace double hooks for this board. To grab my longer screwdriver, I'm going to screw all 3 of my hooks in. So just measuring, here I'm not going to measure from the end, I'm just going to measure the distance in between, get them sitting kind of roughly even, and then my board is done. It's ready for hanging, both on the wall and hanging things onto it. Okay, there's our board done. We've got our hooks on the front, we have our hanging hardware on the back. It's all ready to go. The last thing we need to do is we need to fix our jars so that they are able to hang from our board, from our hooks. So what we're going to do is we're gonna make them look like this. So in keeping with kind of the little rustic look, we want to make the handle, and then we want to kind of attach some of the jute rope around it to kind of finish it off. And that's a section that we did not paint. To do that, I've taken 3, and let me measure this out, because this is more than long enough. We'll cut some of this off, but it gives us a place to start. So I've got about 20 inches long, and I've cut 3 lengths of jute, and this is not particular, I'd say it's maybe what, 6 millimeters thick, 5 millimeters thick. What we want to do is we want to take a glue gun and just glue the ends of these. Now I want them to sit flat because I'm going to glue them against the sides here. So I don't want them to be a huge big cylinder, because I'm going to be taking glue, I'm going to be taking more jute and wrapping it around, so I don't want it to be a huge bulge. So I just let this cool a bit, dip my fingers into water just so that the glue doesn't stick, and then I kind of press this together. So my glue has had a chance to cool a bit, so it's not burning me, but the water just prevents the glue from sticking to my fingers. I don't know about you guys, but I end up with these glue threads all over me for the rest of the day. But once that's cooled, and they feel like spider webs, yuck. Okay, so once that's done, all I'm going to do is to braid it. So crossing the right over the center, the left over the center, and I'm gonna do it fairly tight, but really making an effort to keep it flat and centered. I'm gonna do this and braid it out to a length that you like. The one thing that I did was when I braided for the sample jar, I then braided the next one and measured it against the first, so that I have a sample that they're all then going to be roughly the same length. Now, I'm not going to agonize over if they're not exact. So if one's hanging a little bit lower, one's hanging a little bit higher, I'm cool with that. If you're not, then make sure you're a little bit more precise than I am about this. I'm going for it's roughly the same, and I'm okay, but you do you, right? Some of us are a little less exacting about things in our lives. Some of us are a little bit more precise, and I think there's room in the world for both of us. So don't judge me if mine aren't perfectly even. You can make yours even. Right? But I'm going for at least roughly the same so that I have something to measure against. And I just left enough space on the handle for whomever is using these. If they wanted to put flowers into it, then there's room for the flowers to be sticking out. Or, you know, I envision you could add in pencils and markers and paintbrushes and those kinds of things. So again, there's room. The shorter the handle, the less room there is. So I think that I've got more than long enough, actually. I might have to undo a bit because I got talking. Yeah, so take it to about here. And so when you're done where you want, just kind of lay those 3 flat, and I'm just going to glue them again, right? So I want to glue on the front and the back. I'm going to try avoid touching it while it's hot. Let it cool a bit. Dip my fingers into the water, and then use the water to help me be able to flatten that glue in to keep it nice and flat and firm. And then I can cut it off. So that gives me the handle that I'm going to use. All right, so take a look at, because we've got the front of our jar, and these are a little bit squared off. So I'm going to dab a bit of glue on the one end and roughly the center of my jar on one side, bit of glue, and the opposite side. I just want to hold those in place. And then what we're going to do is we are going to take the end of our jute, if I can find it. There we go. So we're going to take the end of our jute, and here, like I've got a big clump of something here, so just snip that away. And I'm going to start, now you can see that I have this up on the lip. I'm going to start down on this lower edge so that I can come up around. And what you're going to find is, because these have the screw lid ridges on there, so it's not going to be a nice, perfectly flat way to go in terms of winding, and we're going to be going over these handles. So what I am doing is, like, the first one wraps perfectly because it's nice and smooth, and then as I get up to the ridges, I'm going to be adding some glue that I can push my jute into to be able to hold it in place, that helps me do the wrap. So I just want a bit of glue there at the start to be able to anchor that jute into. And again, just exercising caution with the hot glue here. This first one just wraps around perfectly easily, but then I hit into some of that glass. And so I'm going to take a little line of glue just along the ridge where my jar lid would have attached in, and I'm just going to anchor some of my jute in there. And I find that I don't have to anchor it the entire length around, and certainly when I get to sections where that ridge isn't, then I'm fine without glue. But I'm just going to go around and anchor it wherever I feel that I need to. I like to just kind of finish it off right around the top so that it's nice and clean looking, that you've got that edge where it just shows the jute itself. And you'll always finish it off entirely by your last round. So I'm going to do right against this handle, that's going to wrap right around and tuck in. So I'm going to look and see how much. So I'm not going to glue right to that spot. I'm going to look and see how much I need. Cut off that edge. There we go. Put my glue down. And then I'm going to want to tuck that right up in while the glue's hot into that glue. So you don't see the end spot. It's going to be tucked right into that handle, and it holds really nicely. So it's all pushed in. Go back and pull all your little threads away. Now, if you're using the jute as well, you'll have all these little hairs sticking out. If you don't like them, you can take a lighter and just kind of run it over very quickly, and it'll burn all those little hairs away. I don't mind the rustic look of it, so I'm going to leave mine, but it depends upon what look you're after, right? So just know that you can get rid of those with holding a quick match or a little lighter under it, and they'll just frizzle away very quickly, and just move the flame. All right, so I'm gonna carry on. We've got 2 of our 3 done. I'm gonna carry on and do the last one, and then I'll take some pictures and stage this up. But you know, they're going to hang very easily from our board be against a wall. It looks super rustic, but super cute. So, you know, give this a try. I think that perfect for doing some florals, for having in an office or a craft room with all kinds of different markers. Perfect for, you know, kids when you're looking for extra storage, and you can have a number of them on the wall to be able to organize. I'll probably use them with paintbrushes because I have a million of those. So keeping them organized, but give it a try. It's using all found items. There's very few supplies that you're gonna have to run out and be able to buy to be able to do this, but it's a cute little fun project that you're gonna find really practical. I look forward to seeing you next week. Make sure that you tune in. Queen Bee Creations on YouTube. Subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and check out the website for any of the supplies and materials, queenbeecreationshome.com. I'll see you soon. Take care.